You wake up tired. You go through the motions. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow comes and nothing changes. You call it laziness. Society calls it laziness. But what if that's the biggest lie you've ever believed? You are not lazy. You are exhausted by living someone else's life. Alan Watts understood something that most people never will. That feeling of paralysis, that inability to move forward, that constant exhaustion that sleep never fixes. It's not a character flaw. It's a signal. Your soul is screaming at you. And until you listen, you will keep dragging yourself through days that feel like walking through wet concrete. What you're about to discover could finally explain why you've been stuck, why motivation never lasts, why discipline feels impossible. The answer isn't what you think. The wrong game. Alan Watts spent his life observing something peculiar about Western civilization. He watched millions of people exhaust themselves climbing ladders that were leaning against the wrong walls. We spend our whole lives trying to be somewhere else, someone else, and we call this progress. Think about it. From the moment you could understand words, you were told what success looks like. Get good grades, get into a good school, get a good job, buy a house, retire happy. But here's what Watts discovered: this entire game was designed by people who never asked the most important question. Is this what I actually want? You're not lazy. You're playing a game that was never yours to play. Your exhaustion isn't physical. It's existential. Your body is refusing to invest energy in a life that doesn't belong to you. It's not sabotage. It's wisdom. Your deepest self knows something your conscious mind refuses to accept. But what exactly is your soul trying to tell you? Society's trap. Watts called it the double bind of civilization. Society tells you to be spontaneous but follow the rules. Be creative but don't rock the boat. Be yourself but fit in. You cannot win a game designed for you to lose. From childhood, you were trained to postpone living. Study now, enjoy later. Work hard now, relax later. Save now, live later. But later never comes. Because there's always another goal, another milestone, another achievement that supposedly leads to happiness. Delay your life forever. Watts saw this as a massive cultural hypnosis. We're all sleepwalking through existence, believing that life happens after we check off certain boxes. But what if the boxes themselves are the prison? If this pattern is resonating with something deep inside you, hit like and subscribe to keep uncovering the truths that set you free. Because what comes next reveals why breaking free feels so impossibly hard. The ego's illusion. Here's where Watts got truly radical. He argued that your sense of being a separate self, this thing you call I, is itself an illusion. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. What you think of as you is actually a social construction. A collection of memories, opinions, and reactions that you've been told belong to a thing called a person. But this ego, this separate self, is exhausting to maintain because it doesn't actually exist. You're spending enormous energy keeping up an illusion. The mask you wear at work, the persona you present to family, the version of yourself you show on social media. Exhausting. Each mask requires energy. Each performance drains you. And somewhere beneath all these characters, the real you is suffocating. Your laziness isn't laziness at all. It's the exhaustion of pretending to be someone you're not. But if the ego is an illusion, then what are you really? The cosmic dance. Watts drew heavily from Eastern philosophy, particularly Hinduism and Buddhism. He introduced the West to a radical idea. Life is not a journey with a destination. It's a dance. Dance with no goal. Think about music. When you listen to a song, you don't rush to get to the end. The point isn't to finish. The point is to experience each note as it happens. But we treat life completely differently. We rush through childhood to become adults, rush through work weeks to reach weekends, rush through our entire lives trying to get somewhere. We thought of life by analogy with a journey, with a pilgrimage which had a serious purpose at the end. And so you feel lazy because you're not making progress. But progress toward what? Toward death. That's where every journey ends. Your exhaustion comes from treating existence like a race to be won rather than a song to be sung. What if you stopped running? Money madness. Watts had a famous lecture about money that still haunts people today. He asked a simple question. What would you do if money were no object? Most people have no answer, because they've never even considered it. From childhood, we're told to be practical. Don't follow your dreams. Get a real job. Be responsible. And so generation after generation ends up doing things they hate to make money, to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't like. Watts argued this is absolute insanity. You're spending your limited time on earth doing something that drains your soul, all to accumulate pieces of paper that represent value you never get to experience. If you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. Your laziness might be the only sane response to an insane system. Your body refuses to give energy to work that kills your spirit. That's not weakness. That's intelligence. But is there another way to live? The backwards law. Watts articulated something he called the backwards law, and it might be the most counterintuitive truth you'll ever hear. The more you chase, the more you pursue happiness, the more it escapes you. The harder you try to be confident, the more anxious you become. The more desperately you want something, the more it slips away. This explains so much about your exhaustion. You've been trying to be motivated, trying to be disciplined, trying to be successful, trying to be happy. But all that trying is the very thing preventing you from getting there. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. Your constant effort to fix yourself, improve yourself, change yourself, it's creating the very problem it's trying to solve. Stop trying. What if the solution isn't more effort but less? What if the answer isn't to push harder but to let go? This leads us to the most radical idea Watts ever proposed. Present moment. Watts was obsessed with one thing, the present moment, because he realized that the present is the only thing that actually exists. This is the real secret of life. To be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. Your mind is almost never here. It's replaying the past. It's rehearsing the future. It's anywhere except where life is actually happening. And this constant mental time travel is draining you. Here and now only. Think about when you feel most alive. It's when you're completely absorbed in something, when time disappears, when the past and future fade away. That's not laziness. That's presence. Your exhaustion comes from constantly being elsewhere, from never actually arriving, from treating each moment as a stepping stone to some other moment that never comes. What if you stopped trying to get somewhere and just allowed yourself to be where you already are? But how do you actually do this in a world that demands constant productivity? Playing vs working. Here's where Watts becomes truly practical. He distinguished between two fundamental approaches to life, working and playing. Working is what you do to get somewhere else. Playing is what you do for its own sake. You've forgotten how to play. As children, we played naturally. We built sandcastles not for achievement but for joy. We explored not for advancement but for wonder. But somewhere along the way, we were taught that play is childish, that serious people work, that adults must always be productive. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. Your laziness might be a desperate longing to play again, to do something, anything, just because you love it, not for money, not for status, not for the future, just for the pure joy of doing it now. Play is not optional, but we've been so conditioned to work that we don't even know what play looks like anymore. That's about to change. Your true calling. Watts didn't believe in finding your purpose like it's some hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. He believed your purpose finds you when you stop running from yourself. What you are basically deep down, far in, is simply the fabric of existence itself. You're not lazy. You're disconnected. Disconnected from what genuinely moves you, what genuinely excites you, what you would do even if no one paid you and no one was watching. That thing you did as a child before anyone told you what was practical. That interest you abandoned because it wasn't realistic. That dream you buried because it seemed foolish. It's still there. Your exhaustion is your authentic self suffocating beneath layers of should and must and have to. Watts said something that still echoes. Better to have a short life doing what you love than a long life of misery doing what you hate. But there's one final insight that ties everything together. Wake up now. Alan Watts spent his life trying to wake people up, not to some mystical state, not to religious belief, but to the simple recognition of what's already here. Waking up to who you are requires letting go of who you imagine yourself to be. You've been imagining yourself as lazy, as broken, as someone who needs to be fixed, improved, motivated, disciplined. But what if none of that is true? What if your exhaustion is wisdom? What if your resistance is intelligence? What if your inability to force yourself through a life that doesn't fit is actually the healthiest response possible? You are already complete. Watts would say there's nothing wrong with you. There never was. You've just been asleep, dreaming someone else's dream, living someone else's life, and now you can wake up. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are right, not when you've finally achieved enough. Right now, this moment, the only moment there ever is. The alarm is ringing. Will you hit snooze again? Or will you finally open your eyes? Alan Watts lived what he taught. He refused to fit into boxes. He spoke to millions about presence while chain smoking and drinking. He was gloriously, imperfectly human. And that's the point. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need more discipline or motivation or self-improvement. No valid plans for the future can be made by those who have no capacity for living now. You need to stop running, stop chasing, stop pretending, and just breathe. You're not lazy. You're exhausted by the wrong life, and now you know it. The question is, what will you do with this knowing? Will you keep dragging yourself through days that don't belong to you? Or will you finally have the courage to ask, what would I do if money were no object? What would I do just for the love of it? Your life awaits. If you made it this far, comment "finally awake" if something in this clicked, because that means you're ready. The wisdom of the ages is yours. Use it well. If this opened something in you, subscribe for more. The vault has deeper treasures waiting.